Hello, my name is Gil Penalosa, and this is Cities for Everyone, the webinar where every other week I invite fascinating people to share their stories so that all of us can learn about equitable, sustainable, and playful cities where everyone can live healthier and happier. Originally, I'm from Bogota, Colombia, where I led the construction of hundreds of parks and the transformation of a ciclovia from a few kilometers to over 120 and a few thousands of people to over 1.5 million. But I've been living in Toronto, Canada for the last 27 years. And 20 years ago, I created a nonprofit, 880 Cities. And 880 is one of the sponsors of this webinar session. The other is Cities for Better Health, because everyone deserves to live healthy. And today's guest is two of them, Larry Beasley and Michael White. And they're going to be presenting Planning the Future of Abu Dhabi, an Canadian Emirate collaboration creating a sustainable city. Larry, for over 20 years, was co-director of planning in Vancouver. The other co-director was Anne McAfee, and the two of them are a great example of how it's not a mayor the only ones who can transform city. They were staff, co-directors of planning, and they totally transformed Vancouver and pretty much made the fundamental changes that the city needed to be what it is today. Larry, Michael, please tell us about how this amazing transformation now in Abu Dhabi, very different context on size of city, on place, on location, on climate, on culture. How did it take place? Larry and Michael, tell everyone a little bit about yourselves and tell us about your experience transforming Abu Dhabi into a sustainable city.
Well, thank you, Gil. Yes, I was the chief planner along with Dr. Ann McAfee. We were co-chief planners in Vancouver for many years. And then after that, I left in 2006. I started working around the world, not only in Abu Dhabi, but in the Nordic countries, Australia, Canada, the United States, and elsewhere. Basically echoing the kind of messages that you are echoing every day, Gil. And beside me is Michael White. Michael?
Good morning, Gil. Good morning, everybody. I'm Michael White, also former City Hall planner, senior planner for a decade before joining this endeavor in the Middle East for about 4 years for my tenure there. Fascinating experience that we'll tell you about today. And then we're coming back to North America, joined the University of British Columbia and acting currently as chief planner for the university.
So
Gil,
tell us about it, because obviously people know that city when they say, "Oh, but I'm not Copenhagen," but I'm not. No, every city is different. Even within the cities, every neighborhood is different. So it's not just copy paste. No, but there are so many things that we can adapt and improve. So please go ahead.
So what I'm going to do, Gil, allow me to share my screen.
And as you see, we have people from India, we have people from Kenya, we have people from Mexico, from all over the world. Okay, excellent. Now it's very clear.
So yes, we're going to talk about our mission, which was from 2006 to 2012, to really help the Emirate of Abu Dhabi reposition themselves as a leader in sustainable and livable development. And we now realize also resilient development. And we're going to tell you a lot about that today. Here's our agenda. We're going to let you know something about the nature of this special place. We're going to mention the book that's just come out about it. We're going to tell you how we geared up to do our work and how we worked with the local people. And then we're going to cover our work. On the one side, we did plans and urban designs. On the other side, we put together an entire mechanism, a planning department, and many policies in order to really make the drive fast, make it effective, and do what the leadership of Abu Dhabi wanted. The leadership were behind this every step of the way. And then we're going to end with some reflections. And I'll start by just covering what this place is all about and what our assignment was all about. I was with Ann McAfee from Vancouver. We were the co-planners, and we had spent the last 15 years. I had spent 30 years, so had she, in helping to restructure our city to be an acknowledged city that was more sustainable and more livable, but also very dense and very diverse. And all of a sudden, I got this tap on my shoulder from a place that I knew nothing about. And they said, come and help us to do the same thing. And immediately, I realized we were going to involve a lot of people. I brought from my firm, Beasley and Associates, Sandy Logan in to be our project manager. I then reached out to Perkins and Will Canada and the really well-known architect there, Peter Busby, who's Canada's greenest architect, I would say, and also Civitas Urban Design and Planning, Joe Ruda, who is one of the best urban designers on the planet. And we put together an initiative going to Abu Dhabi that drew a lot of Canadians, and it really became a Canadian mission to take some ideas, but in a different way than, say, the Americans or the Europeans might do it, to try to do it in our way, helping the Abu Dhabians. And it was very much a collaboration from the very first day, led really by the leadership of Abu Dhabi, who were very passionate, very well supported by their community, and very much wanting to position themselves in the head of things. And you can see, looking at the nature of the place, you can see even from this image, it's a modern industrial complex, cultural complex. It's not small towns. It's not behind the times. It's very, very modern. At the same time, and this was the beautiful thing we discovered, there is the wonderful Bedouin culture. It's deep, it's strong. There is the Islamic culture that shapes their lives every day. There's a way of life that comes with the desert and with Islam that was so important to them. They were not prepared to give that up just to have modernism, as you might say. Now, they are one of the richest places in the world. They have about 10% of all the known oil reserves in the world. So no, they weren't struggling. They were very, very contemporary. They could buy the best of everything and maybe even the worst of everything. And we all know that what we thought was the best maybe 30 years ago, we now realize is not giving us the kind of quality of life that we want. They also had an onslaught of development that was not really able to be shaped, or at least they weren't able to shape it at the time. They needed a new vision. They needed new tools in order to do that. But they were starting from a strong place, both of leadership and with the wealth to really follow up on what they wanted to do. Now, it's a very hierarchical society. We in the West have had to get used to that on the one hand, there are the Emiratis themselves. They only represent about 20% of the population. They are very well educated. They live in very quality situations. They enjoy the fruits of modern society. They travel around the world for their education and all that. By the same token, 80% of the population are people coming in from elsewhere. There are people like us, Michael and I, the expat as they became known, who come in, and it's a real opportunity. We can help them to shape their society in all aspects of it. But there's also the visiting workers. This is an image of more typically about 70% of the population who do the work, who make things happen, and who come mostly from disadvantaged societies. We look at them with great passion. On the other hand, they look at us and say this was an opportunity moment for them, often sending resources back to their families back home. But it is a structured society. You always know who is in the leadership position. They started to develop their cities with the oil wealth when it started to flow. And the first plans which was generated in the middle to third part of the last century, was basically of a dense, large block city framework, and then big boulevards like this boulevard here, where all the traffic was moving. Well, it seemed like a good model at the time because it was an automobile culture of the time around the world, not just here. But of course, we know now that there are some limitations. Like this, all of a sudden you find a big part of your city that is overwhelmed by the automobiles, that pedestrians have no place. Look at this, where pedestrians are, a byproduct. They're beside the point. But not only that, it's hard to get a street life, a street culture. It's hard to have scale that's localized, that's human, that's livable. It's hard to do what you wanted to do. And it was beginning to affect people quite negatively at the urban side. On the other hand, it sits within this magnificent natural environment of the desert. The desert is pervasive. The desert sets their culture. The desert informs their contemporary life. The desert is what they draw their complete identity from. And so it's overwhelmingly important in anything that they do. By the same token, along the coast are these wonderful intertidal zones, the forests of water and trees, and creates incredible humidity through much of the year, but also is a place where human beings were able to thrive and live through the centuries, really allowing the culture to start to develop. And so these two organic environments really set the stage for what we had to do as the big city was coming into play. They are an ancient culture. And we also not only were working in the large city of Abu Dhabi, we were working in the smaller cities. And this is an image from Al Ain, the city of Al Ain, which is the historic city. It is the royal city. It is the spiritual center of their country. And it has these magnificent heritage and historical buildings. And it's all built around a wonderful oasis. And the oasis is really a metaphor for the human responsibility to take the environmental conditions, to add the human needs and human touch. An oasis is an agricultural feature invented by humans to provide what they needed within the context of this entire landscape. That's a good sense of what we were up to. We were called, we came, and we did our work for 5 years. That led to an entire adventure that, on the one hand, we, many years later, in the early 20s, wanted to document for posterity, maybe for our children, for the future, but also that we wanted to draw some lessons from, some insights from. And that caused us to put together this book. It was appropriate that Michael and I would be the co-editors. I led the effort from the beginning. Michael immediately, from almost the beginning, landed in Abu Dhabi, became the lead and senior Canadian on the scene, and then many other Canadians came in. Our book is about the Canadian-Emirati collaboration that occurred, but we also brought in people from other parts, many other parts of the world. It's a place it's a crossroads, and it was a crossroads of planners and architects and landscape architects and engineers and social scientists and agricultural experts and all the kind of people that could really help Abu Dhabi reposition itself. And that led to this book. It's just out this week. We hope you will enjoy the rest of the story and might get into a lot more detail a lot more detail by this book. It's a book of essays, and each person told their story. It does come together because we took the overview, but it also gives the individual stories of what it was like to live and work in that part of the world. Michael?
Thank you, Larry. So what I'm going to pick up on now, just for a few minutes, is talk a little bit more about our mission in Abu Dhabi. And then before we get into some of the content, just give you a flavor of what it was like to live and work there, and that partnership Larry was describing with the locals, and our mission in terms of training the locals to eventually take over. We were not there to be permanent. We were there for a few years by intention. Just to build on Larry's comments about where we started. The urban condition, as Larry pointed out, was pretty bleak in the beginning. There was rapid growth in the early 2000s with the diversification of the economy and a lot of foreign investment. But that growth was built on that structure that Larry referred to, primarily designed in the 60s. And it was all about the car. It was freeways, freeways, freeways. It was mass congestion, a pretty hostile pedestrian environment, as you saw, very few amenities, and some serious environmental degradation. So what's interesting is this was not even close, not surprisingly, the vision that the founder of the country, Sheikh Zayed, had in the first instance. He had a vision for broad economic and social diversity and honoring the environment. So in the end, our mission was as much about supporting their nation building efforts as it was a city planning effort. And so when we look at the first steps that we took, obviously there were some immediate interventions. There's some great stories I'll read in the book about, for example, stopping freeway expansion, if this sounds familiar for those of you folks that have read or experienced those stories in North America. So immediate interventions to stop some serious issues. The second was to develop a new vision and new plans for the city of Abu Dhabi, but also for different parts of the Emirate. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. But the third was founding this new agency. And so it's not about just creating plans, about the capacity to manage the growth over time. So the Urban Planning Council was created. It was chaired by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, and it was intended from the beginning to be a very strong collaboration with the expats and the Emiratis. This was not about a copy and paste, as Larry had said. It was very much intended to be a collaboration with Emirati nationals, us as expat professionals, local experts, and many knowledge holders in the communities in Abu Dhabi as well. Our mission was to grow this agency and grow it fast to keep pace with that growth. We eventually grew to over 200 staff, and we were delivering plans, policies, and guidelines while we were actually growing that agency. So that analogy of building the plane while we were flying was very, very apropos. So a few comments about what it was like living and working there, because I often get as much about the content, just questions about what it was like. And so English was spoken as the business language. So that was kind of the common element in all of our meetings. Really, the daily comforts were readily available so that we could work. And we worked and worked and worked. We worked all the time. For example, food and drink was provided throughout the day in offices. There was a kitchen, and that was provided. And the intention was keep you satisfied, happy, and productive. And that was very much the theme. Living in Abu Dhabi, it was actually there's a lot of perceptions of what it's like to live in the Middle East and the Gulf. It was actually in many ways very familiar. A lot of us lived in townhouses. We were not in compounds. There was many European, Australian, Lebanese stores to complement local offerings. There was very few, no restrictions on our movement or restrictions on women. And many families moved with their children, and there was a range of schooling options. I even played ice hockey once a week in Abu Dhabi. There are obviously elements of difference. Arriving and hearing that the call to prayer at 5 a.m. when I first arrived, I'll never forget that experience. It was immersion in a different culture. There were also churches and synagogues throughout Abu Dhabi, which surprises some people. Larry mentioned the demographics, 80% of people from elsewhere. And many of us, yes, guests, and not an ability to gain citizenship. So a different kind of environment. The dress and attire, very colorful, very diverse. Local dish dashes worn by the men, abayas worn by the women, and colorful attire worn from expats from around the world. Just to close this section, a few comments on working with the locals. As I mentioned, our mission there wasn't to set down roots and stay there for the rest of our lives. Our mission was to train, to coach, and mentor the locals so that they eventually would be taking over and running this agency. And we did that very, very proudly. So that was delivered through very intentional training courses, modules that were developed by us through the expats in partnership with the local leadership. Training and mentorship was significant. We actually had a buddy system. Wherever I traveled, I had a young local Emirati with me. So international trips, meetings with other agencies, always the buddy system. And in the end, the intention was to be handing over the reins of management to the Emiratis. And within that 5-year period, that took place. And I'll talk a little bit later about the current state in Abu Dhabi, but very proud to say that Emiratis are now running that agency and doing so in a very effective way. So I'll press pause there, Larry, and we can talk more about the endeavor.
Yeah, and we, as I said at the beginning, we were asked to do plans, many more plans than we originally thought, but plans for the whole place, to give them a vision. And we were asked to do institutional development and process development. I'm going to talk about the plans and the urban designs that we did. Here's a good map to give you an orientation. This is, they call it the Arabian Gulf. Others in the world call it the Persian Gulf. If you look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the Straits of Hormuz. The edge of that there, you can see the entire country of the United Arab Emirates, and that really the biggest proportion is in Abu Dhabi itself. We did 4 major plans. We did a plan for the city of Abu Dhabi. We did a plan for then the region of Al Garbiya. We did a plan for the city of Al Ain. We did a plan for the region of Al Ain. And then we went right down and zeroed in to do the urban design for a new capital district, because even though this was the capital city, it didn't have a really strong expression of a capital, and the leadership really wanted to change that. I'm not going to go over the plans for all the towns and villages and other settlements that we did, about 25 of those as well. We had to do everything very quickly. At the beginning, His Highness said to me, "Can you have the plans ready in 4 months?" And I said, "No, but I think we can turn the process around." We would do intensive sessions between the locals and our experts. We would then generate the plans. They would start to make decisions, and then we would refine and refine and refine. And because we had founded the planning agency, those refinements were institutionalized into the process. But all of this was done just as you see here, thousands of meetings like this, where we just drew it all out, discussed it, decided which of the best ideas from the world we wanted to add, which of the best ideas from the local culture needed to prevail, and that became the way we did things. I will say we were inspired by Ian McHarg, a great thinker for all of us, to say before we even think about the world of humans, let's think about the world of the environment. And so we developed what we call the green gradient, not green as in it was green, but green and in that it was sensitive and understanding of the environment. We had areas where we said it's a no-go zone. It will remain natural. There would be desert areas. There would be mangrove areas along the coast. Then we had areas where we said, okay, we can have a bit of intervention, but not much because the ecology needs to work. And then we had areas where we said, okay, this either is already occupied by humans or it can be occupied without too much impact on the environment. Just quickly going through the various plans, the plan of Abu Dhabi City itself. The most important thing about this plan, as you will see here, is that on the island was the old historic center. Unfortunately, it was leading vast traffic jams to try to get there, one umbilical cord in. We developed the new capital district on the mainland, which gave them a kind of a dual center system so that we could really spread that circulation out. And then around that could develop the housing, the large, higher density housing for expats and for visiting workers. The more lower density housing were the preferences of the Emirati community, and then a lot of new, very dedicated open space, national parks, local parks, and protected areas. When we moved to the city of Al Ain, the historic city, the entire idea was to reinforce the history and the historic pattern around the historic oasis, and then to spread that out into the agricultural center that the city of Al Ain represented, to make sure that there was a compatible relationship between the urbanism that was to happen and the agriculture that needed to be protected. Then we got into our regional plans in the Al Gharbia region. The big issue, because this is where all the oil comes from, the biggest issue was how to reconcile the oil industry and all of the extraction with quality, protecting the environment, and with quality communities. We identified where the new communities needed to be, completely new communities, where existing communities needed to be augmented, where smaller villages need to be added, where protected areas need to be very carefully protected, and where the industrial complex could function comfortably as it needed to function. Then when we moved over to the Arif Al Ain, or the regional area of Al Ain, the whole idea was both enhancing agriculture and protecting the natural environment, and frankly, not having this as an area that would be for human settlement and human growth over time, but rather an area that would allow the country to have a full and strong ecology to go along with city development and urban development. Then coming back and looking more at an urban design capacity at the capital district. First, of course, we established that setting of a capital by identifying districts with a capital intention, identifying locations such as portals and the airport, which are important places in and out of the capital. Of course, identifying the Grand Mosque district as very important, and then the capital district itself. And then we did a plan for the capital district. Our idea here was to build on some traditional ideas where the shape of the very city and its roads and its open space and its building areas would strongly echo out the capital intentions, with the government center at the center of the whole thing, connected to the Grand Mosque, with the commercial areas stretching along the major streets, and along with higher density residential, and then a place right there in the heart of the capital for Emiratis to live in their communities as well. It came to look like this. We wanted to keep the scale down here. We wanted to keep the ambience of the capital district very different from the downtown you see in the distance. Here's a model just to show you what that would look like. We knew it would have strong identity in the entire country, hopefully in the entire world. And here's, well, that was our design for that, which is slowly being implemented. Michael, back to you about our policies and organization.
Thanks, Larry. So just briefly, how did we deliver on this ambition? I think that the first was needing to decipher the priorities. And so a good example is need that capital district. We want to plan within 8 months, I think that was. How do you do that? It's impossible. We need to determine what was driving that. In this case, Emirati plot allocation. So every husband and wife, when they're married, are granted a plot from the government, and they had a backlog of several thousand plots. That was the driver for the first delivery in that plan. Once we had that sorted out, it gave us time to actually breathe and deliver the rest of the plan. So it's an example of deciphering those priorities out of the gate. The second was the willingness to try new ideas. And they had never undertaken community engagement in the history of the Emirate. There's a Majlis concept where the Crown Prince and others will receive delegations, but they'd never undertaken true community engagement. So we pitched it and we said, if we undertake community engagement in the planning and design of these communities, it'll make for a faster process, and we'll get it right from or closer to right from the start. We tried it, it worked, and we undertook community engagement through the planning process, building on their traditional Majlis notion, and it's now a key part of the community planning efforts in the Emirate. The third was we needed to staff up and resource up, and also partnering with other agencies that existed that dealt with transportation or environment or other content areas. So all of that very intensely over our short period of time. We had to develop a new development management system. I noticed Val Zillig's on the call today, one of our American colleagues who worked with us there. We needed to transform a very kind of traditional and in way informal transactional approach to development management. And so we overlaid a system that provided a little more structure and guidance and thoroughness in development review, but it also trying to adapt to local needs. And some of us coming from the West, ideas of densification and mixed use needed to respect needs, for example, for courtyard design in a lot of the homes and to enable privacy and to enable the welcoming of guests, and the need to accommodate perhaps in some cases even more parking than we were comfortable with because of all the guests that would come to visit, especially during Ramadan. I'm just going to touch on briefly a couple of the other key elements. Sustainability of prime importance for the government and for the leadership. I remember a meeting, the Crown Prince asking me, what was the largest northern city in Canada? And I said, well, that's probably Edmonton, of around 1 million people. And he said, how cold does it get there in the winter? And I said, well, probably -40 or -45. And he said, so why can't we build cities of 1 million people in +40, +45 here in the Middle East? I think it was a pretty profound moment that the challenge was there for us to develop these systems and to really respect the local environment. And that's what we did. We developed programs and guidelines. To this day, they have a program called Estadama that a colleague, John Madden, helped develop, that provides a green building program for new structures in the Emirate. And that also equally applied to infrastructure. Infrastructure and transportation, Larry touched on some of the challenges. When you're dealing with a city that was designed with that 1960s freeway and real focus on private automobiles, we really needed to talk about choices that needed to be made to diversify and to create other modes of transportation, and especially transit. And so one of the first priorities was developing a bus system to provide that service for the broad public, but also thinking about higher level services, rapid transit, LRT, and other systems, which they are working on aggressively actually now in Abu Dhabi, which we're very proud of. Even utilities, they have separate utility corridors outside of the roadway. So these enormous right-of-ways that accommodate vehicles, plus all the utilities, creating a pretty hostile urban environment. So for urban design, we needed to change this with our Emirati colleagues, ways to create a hostile environment to a much more livable place and for all residents. So instead of hopscotching around, and it was hopscotching across a lot of those streets and real issues of safety, with the locals, we developed a street design manual, a public realm design manual to introduce ideas like complete streets and to provide comfort and safety. Shade, as these examples show, is a big deal in those hot environments and for many months of the year. So to develop these concepts and working together and then actually implementing, and then coming back to Larry's point about resources, the will and the resources were there for us to actually see these materialize, even in that short period of time, over 4 to 5 years. Developments like this were coming out of the ground, which we were very proud of. There was a lot of work that we needed to do to actually design new communities, and there were a lot of new communities, but also retrofitting older communities. And so that was both, it was a dual program to look at areas like this in the downtown that needed to be retrofitted. And these are the concepts that we worked with our local Emirati partners on to look the before and after. And these slides actually provide a great summary of the existing condition and the vision that was articulated through our work with the locals. So we're going to stop there, and we're just going to take a couple minutes because we're getting short on time to do just to provide a few reflections on the overall experience. I think one of the big questions that I'll touch on is what came of our plans. So over 15 years, what difference did it make? And proud to say that if you look at a lot of the new communities, like on Saadiyat Island and Yas Island, you are seeing the concept put into play. So public spaces, parks, playgrounds, additional schools, shade features, bike infrastructure, they are actually being built in these new communities. Retrofits of the old communities is proving fairly challenging for a number of reasons, but there are opportunities that have been taken even in the older downtown to introduce these new concepts for complete streets and complete communities. When it comes to sustainability, still that commitment to sustainability is, I think, as a high priority, and we're seeing it with the protection of some of the dune landscapes and mangrove forests, as you see xeriscaping across the cities. And that Estadama process I described is now fully enmeshed in the urban planning, the new iteration of the Urban Planning Council and the local municipalities. Of course, there's trade-offs and compromises. Some of those mangrove forests have been bulldozed, and there's other areas that have been impacted. And there's also downscoping of some of the big ambitious plans like Masdar's zero carbon city. So it's, as you'd expect, I think some mixed outcomes. And same on the transit front, with some very successful projects coming out of the ground and many still in the works. The final thing I'll say before turning it to Larry is what's one of the big kind of reflections in terms of comparing planning from there to here in Canada. Interest-based problem solving, it doesn't matter which governance context you're in, it doesn't matter which culture you're working within. This proved to be essential for the success of our work. And that community planning example that I gave you earlier really, I think, showed us and the local leadership, when you're engaging with people and stakeholders and partners understanding needs and interests, it helps you create a faster plan and a better plan because you're getting it right from the outset. So I'm going to press pause there and turn it over to Larry for final reflections.
Yeah, I'm going to only add a few insights, a couple of insights. Number one is that this really showed that hard plans are not as important as directions and the community commitment to directions. We set some directions with them, help them set those directions, and they've stayed true to them. It also shows that you can have the best ideas, but you really have to build in the local culture. You have to reinterpret the ideas through the local culture. It really showed us that we had to put away our own professional chauvinism, our own Western chauvinism, and really try to see this place from the point of view of what these people wanted it to be. And it showed us that as professionals working abroad, we have to think about our language, our body language, our ideas, and how they either reflect or, and sometimes even insult local people. Now, I will say there were some regrets. We did not change the life of visiting workers as much as we would want, although young people now in the Emirate are helping to do that. We did not get rid of the automobile culture, although they are diversifying in different modes, as has already been described. We did not take them away from that supply approach, build it and they will come. There's still a bit of that, and we wish that they would move more to the demand side as the indicator and driver. But we did have achievements. We did help them to reposition themselves into the vanguard of the future in their own way, in their own time, and we did prepare them to take it over. Planning is still strong. Implementation, city building is still strong. And I guess more than anything, their commitment to the human city in the natural environment is still very strong. And we loved it when they would say to us, you know what, this is all about nation building in the right way, in the modern way, in the generous way, and in the gentle way. So with that, Gil, we'll turn it back to you. We'll pull our PowerPoint away and we can have a conversation.
Last question I have, because we run out of time, we could be here for another hour, is what are your thoughts? We have people here from India and Denmark and New Zealand and South America and so on. What would you, when people say, oh, but I'm not Vancouver, I'm not Copenhagen, what is your recommendation from people when they have consultants that are from outside of the area? Or also, what are your recommendations for consultants when they go abroad, how to deal with these cultural issues? What are the things that you find that people can learn from a city like Vancouver when say, "Oh, I love Vancouver," but yeah, how do you deal with this? And also, maybe you can also add at the end a little bit on climate change that BT Bowen is asking. Uh, Many cities, like even Toronto now in the summer with climate change, Toronto is becoming very, very hot in the summer. And we have people that are not going out in the 3 months of the winter because it's too cold, and now they don't want to go out in the summer because it's too hot. So what can we learn from what you did in very hot Abu Dhabi that could be done in other places to get people outside throughout the year?
Well, what I learned, probably the biggest thing, was humility. That on the one hand, we're a part, many of us around the world, particularly in the developed world, are a part of a huge conversation that's going on about the principle of sustainability, the principle of livability, those wide movements for the new kind of city. By the same token, we're going into cultures that have very, very good solutions for traditionally how they've dealt with these issues. And we can't go in and just wipe all that out or ignore it with our ideas, because for one thing, you'll get cities that look like they each other everywhere in the world. I like to use the idea of cooling, for example. In the traditional system, they reach up and they grab the cooler air and they channel it down through their homes and open spaces. Well, we had to learn to do that too. We had to learn to adopt that. So by adopting the Bedouin, Islamic, Middle Eastern concept of dealing with harsh climate and dealing with different social structures, and having the humility to value that, I think was one of my top learnings.
And right down to even simple things like street orientation, the width of streets, the ability to have street covers. These are traditional practices in that part of the world that work and had been abandoned in some cases. So it was almost easy for us to look back.
Yeah. And finally, I would say, and maybe this is the way to close, finally, we like the whole principle that local people ultimately need to design their own environment. So our job, and we believe that every consultant's job when they go into another part of the world, is to teach the principles, to teach the practices, to teach the methods, and to make them good at it, and then trust them. And that's been one of the fulfilling things for me. I've watched that organization, that planning agency, and all those wonderful people take command of it, be in command of it, and move it forward in a way that I think can be judged by any case in the world.
Wonderful. I love it. And I hope that people will read the book, because it's not only about Abu Dhabi. It's about cultural change. It's about climate change. It's about extreme weather. It's about being open to other cultures and also being humble to learn from others. It's about sharing, but it's also about learning. Larry and Michael, thank you. What an amazing presentation. You show so many great examples of how you took knowledge and experience from a city in Canada, Vancouver, and you transform Abu Dhabi, not only from structure and hard plannings, but more about guiding principles of creating a city for people, and how you were humble enough to sit down and listen and learn from the locals. And it was a process of sharing and learning. And over the years, you ended up creating an amazing local team that is continuing your work in transforming Abu Dhabi into a city for people. I hope that everyone who watches this video, please share it with decision makers, with elected officials, with city staff, with the media, because this is not only about learning about Abu Dhabi, but also about cities in extreme climates, in cities where there's a lot of a gap between the haves and the have-nots. There is more lessons than just about the specific city. Thank you.